Minahan.
Welcome to Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Rose Minahan and her panel of guests bring you leading-edge astrology conversations through a journey of soul growth patterns connecting astrology's energetic cycles. Get ready to understand your path in the cosmic roots of the stars.
Hello, everybody. This is Sue Rose Minahan, Talk Cosmos founder and host, and today is February 19, and we are having a special guest, Michael Bartlett, and our subject is Saturn in a Pisces. In a Pisces? I don't know about that, but it's in Pisces, and that's the bridge to Aquarius. Saturn in Pisces, it grounds humanity. And we begin traveling this sacred journey for spiritual inner growth. It's quite a dimension that has many ramifications in many ways to experience, and yet we will. So at this moment, Michael Bartlett was on the program back in November concerning his subject that he wrote about, Maverick Planets, which is another dynamic part of astrology, which of course encompasses just about everything. Michael focuses on esoteric astrology, and traditionally, while incorporating the depths of the outer planets, his core energetic training, he's highly intuitive nature, 3 decades of business experience, and 2 decades of astrological wisdom give him an extensively resourced toolbox. And he is the author of these books, Astrological Mavericks, which was the focus, really, subjects of these planets in all our charts, of any chart for that matter. And the byline of that is, do you have what it takes to change the world? They're powerful energies. And Astro Theater, which is a revolutionary approach to the ancient art of astrology, and I might say corresponds very well with Astro Jam, which is a part of Astro Drama, and Michael is gladly joining onto that panel that we have every quarter. So, in addition, Michael has been the past interim president of Kepler College, and through that college, which is an astrology online college, he offers webinars and workshops, and he offers experiential intensive readings and speaking engagements. And he can be, of course, located at michael@coremichael.com. And I don't know if I forgot something. Was I supposed to say we're ready, Nathan, for anything? Did I miss myself? I don't know. But anyway, I'm glad to have Michael here. And I must say, I've been experiencing some technological adjustments, but we're powering through because it is going from the electronic to the inclusivity, right? Hi, Michael.
Hi, Sue. How are you today?
I'm fine. I'm so glad that you're joining me on this. I know you have lots to say about the whole subject. Perhaps you have a thought that you want to open us with.
Well, I mean, it's kind of, we were talking about just a little bit ago. I mean, what's very fascinating about it, in esoteric astrology, Pluto is the ruler of Pisces. And in traditional astrology, Saturn is the ruler of Aquarius. So they're in each other's signs. So I like that sort of a bridging, because there's this way in which Aquarius can be a little cool. It can be a little harsh. What we say about Aquarians is, I'm an Aquarius sun, by the way, just to be completely transparent. And what we say about Aquarians typically is we love humanity, but we don't like people. We get caught up sometimes in the idiosyncrasies of individuality, and sometimes can lose sight of the importance of the individual while looking at the larger scope of humanity. That's a little bit of the shadow side with the Pluto in Aquarius. But I think the Saturn in Pisces is going to help temper that, give us a little bit of a grounding. I like to think of Saturn in Pisces as being ancient wisdom, or the old seabed, an ancient seabed, or sand castles on the beach. They are things which we build and we do and we think have a certain level of permanence until a wave comes along and tells us it's something different. It's sort of like the absolute stability and strength of that which is Saturn, which is usually about boundaries and structures and our skin and our bones and our teeth and these hard elements. The ring past knot in esoteric astrology, we call it, meets the limitlessness of the Piscean ocean. So how does one hold one's boundaries in the ocean? How does one allow oneself? And the closest I like to think about it, it's funny, I'll do another little transparency bit. I have a 3-degree Saturn in Pisces. So I'm getting ready for my second Saturn return. And I think the closest thing I can say, it's almost like being a big, long piece of kelp that is rooted down at the bottom of the ocean and that is able to drift and move with the moments of the ocean while still remaining grounded and centered within itself. I think that's, one of the life goals for those of us who wear this signature.
Oh, Michael, that really, I'm so anxious now to bring up some of my slides because there's a beautiful imagery of that. And really, thank you, Nathan. And I will share that I am studying vibrational astrology just on the very entry level of it. And I can share that with Saturn. Yes, archetypally, it does connect, as we are aware of structure and boundaries. But what vibrational astrology brings forward is this idea that it is the essential, what is fundamental, that lasts beyond time. And therefore, with Pisces, which is that expansion into the unknown of greater forces of ourself, it's spirituality. So this is a beautiful thing to realize, that like that ocean that you were bringing forward. And these are our panelists for those people that are looking at YouTube. There's Michael Bartlett at coremichael.com. And of course, you can find everything on Talk Cosmos. And thank you for subscribing to our newsletter and YouTube. Here, Saturn and Pisces energy. Yes, the ocean, as you had said, water, emotion, intuitive, spiritual, fundamental essence of it. And I love this picture, that one of the many artworks that you share of the Buddha, with the flame and the aura and the spheres. So symbolic, very dynamic.
Thank you.
Yes. And then here it is. There is that picture. Okay. Of the kelp and the water and the fish and the human being, whether it's Sedna or whoever, or yeah.
Beautiful. So beautiful. I mean, it teaches, it's the mutability, right? So, Pisces is the last mutable sign. It teaches us that not being attached, which is the complete antithesis to what Saturn is, right? Saturn is teaching us about attachment, teaching us about being ground. So for me, for my work, when we talk about like core energetics, it's the understanding of the traumas that we experience through the birth process, through growing up, where developmental issues become these strategies that we hold in our lives. And so what I like about Saturn in Pisces, it helps me to understand, that the ways in which we have our boundaries are, boundaries that we like to think of this set form, that we, okay, my boundary, this is where my no is. But the truth is, boundaries are energetically dynamic. When you talk about the energetics, right? Especially when you think about Saturn and Pisces together, it's like, I'm going to say no, but it might become a maybe. It might become a yes. I need to gather more information, right? Saturn's going to want to take a little more time. Saturn and Pisces, I think, is going to take a lot more time. I see, like, especially with our generation, when I look at this, March 23, 1964 to March 3rd, 1967, I'll date myself as well. I already said I'm getting ready for my second Saturn return anyway. But, those of us who also were born, and many of us within this time period also had that conjunct Chiron opposite Uranus and Pluto. I'm very happy that mine is like 12 degrees away. So, it's there and it's present, but it isn't ruling the roost. it's affecting other things, of course, but that's what Saturn does. Wherever Saturn is that which requires us to mature in the most particular way, just like Pluto is that which removes the egoic luxuries that are involved with our evolutionary path, the ways in which we become who we became here to be. While we look at astrology, what's really nice with the birth chart is we can look at it as a snapshot of the person. These are sort of the goals and intentions and the energies that an individual has coming into the body, working with, you know, the themes that they're continuing to work with. As far as how I see it, again, Saturn and Pisces, you know, reincarnation, you know, Akashic records, these things that, you know, continue on, that are continue to be, quote, worked on, Saturn in Pisces, you know, that we work on for many lifetimes in these themes. To that end, oh, go ahead, please.
Well, I was going to say right there, that's a very Piscean philosophy of our attitude perspective that I feel, of course, I share, and I think progressively people are becoming aware of, is this idea that our spirit, and we've called it reincarnation, which immediately for some folk might have a blinder set up, like, because we all have this baggage with words, you know, but really when we look at it, what is life eternal except, as I see it, as that spirit, that source part coming into new form. Because Einstein says energy never gets destroyed. It just reforms. So why are we any different? We're not. So thank you.
And the interesting thing I find, or the thing that is kind of like the koan that I'm working with in my mind, and a koan is something like, what is the sound of one hand clapping? If a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it, does it make a sound? It doesn't have an answer. The point is to create this place of nothingness within your brain. Hello, Saturn again in Pisces, a place of meditation. And now I've lost where it was that I was going with that place. Oh, that it's this path of learning and becoming and understanding that there's something greater than ourselves. I believe with this Pluto in Aquarius, this Saturn in Pisces, it's going to require us to step forward in different ways that aren't so me oriented.
Mm-hmm.
That Pluto's, you know, moving into across from all, you know, that whole me generation of the Pluto and Leo generation are going to have Pluto opposition starting in March.
Yeah. In fact, I think I'll join right here. Let's see. We'll go back to this. This is another great picture of yours. But here, Esoteric Astrology, because I created these, folks, if you're looking. And of course, we toggle back and forth as they're appropriate. So esoteric versus SXEX is like traditional mundane. But here, ESO, which is the hidden, the unveiling of what we don't see, soul-centered. Esoteric astrology primarily concerned with the study of the unfoldment and externalization of consciousness. One little sentence out of Alan Oken's, the great late astrologer, soul-centered astrology. Yet I think also here, I wonder if this might relate somewhat to our conversation right now, and then we can flip back to Aquarius and those pictures and the charts. But yes, I love this idea that you're bringing up, is that because, okay, what I'll introduce is the mutable cross and the cardinal cross, which you are referring to with Capricorn, which is the cardinal action, motivation, movement of the four, and Pisces, both of the last of the four, and of the mutable, of the shifting, refocusing element, adjusting. Yes, it's quite a process.
Yeah, it's quite beautiful. I mean, when you think of Aquarius, it's we call it right human relationship. That's really its highest goal. And Jupiter is the esoteric ruler of Aquarius. And Jupiter is what we call a second ray planet. The planets are all split up into different rays. And the second ray is the solar system in which we live, in which our sun is also second ray. And it means love and wisdom. So the idea here is with Jupiter and Aquarius is loving wisdom towards humanity. This idea that the that if we structure things, the traditional ruler of Saturn, if we set up our foundations appropriately, we use Uranus as the modern ruler of Aquarius, and we bring in new ways to evolve and understand and improve upon those foundations. And then we move into Jupiter, using these foundations to serve as many people as possible and benefit everyone. That's a really wonderful usage, because on the more traditional level of Aquarius, it's going to be it's hierarchical. Aquarius is a little bit of an elitist.
Can be, yes. That there is shadow side to everything. Exactly.
Yes,
if you're going to have like-minded, that can become smaller and smaller depending on what your parameters are. It's I read many years ago. Actually, it was in high school. It was a long time ago, and it really struck me, because if you're trying to meet the multitudes of any large group, particularly, let's say, the whole population, the mean must come. The mean, meaning the average, right, must lower itself. And this isn't without judgment, but it's just more simplistic, as to focus on what. And so as groups decide, oh no, we're going to be in this group, or we're going to be in that group, it can get more narrow. That's the
which we're kind of seeing with a lot of the astrological organizations right now. There's quite a with such an interest in astrology right now, of course, there's a desire to find some way to create metrics and understanding when people say that they are, qualified as an astrologer, that they actually are qualified, and it's not they just attended a workshop for the week and read a pamphlet. But in that process of changing things over and creating the structures for them, it's very challenging. And I hope that through this process of Pluto in Aquarius and Saturn in Pisces, that there will become more of a coherence that's occurring, a little bit more. Unfortunately, some of these organizations have been run by a lot of egos that are really based in singularity, as opposed to, again, a collective. And I think, as we're going to be seeing more and more, those structures are going to have to break down in order to evolve.
That exactly, Michael, illustrates what I picked out of Alan Oken's book here, and I will read it for those people in the podcast, because he does state Aquarius, the urge to serve and be all things to all people. That's pretty altruistically high-minded. I'm adding that part. Then there's an evolution involved from the projection of self into society for the service of personality. That's pretty much where a person may think to themselves, I'm adding, that they have this larger intent, but it's really servicing their own magnitude, perhaps. I mean, we all have shadow sides, and it's very human. We all probably go through this at some part. But the other idea of it, the more expanded, truly evolved part of our maturation, we could call, is transmuting to a profoundly capable orientation toward world service, using or through this pinnacle of through group orientation and group consciousness, so that we become transformers of humanity. That's pretty elevated and dynamic. So it does say that, but it's true. I think that it's getting called out generally, because inclusivity is more and more, of course, more inclusive we get, it gets more individualized, which is important to recognize. There's a way to include multitudes of people by giving dignity, those inherent things that Leo understands. Everybody has their purpose.
Yeah, such a great point. I think it's going to be just, of course, there's going to be shadow stuff that goes on. The ways in which, these are great opportunities for people to play games with their ideas around spirituality, to take advantage of people, to, this can be a little bit, there can be charlatanism that goes on, people leading or saying, oh, I'm a guru and everything. And all that guru stuff, which is, Jupiter is guru, or guru is Jupiter in Hindu and in Sanskrit. So it's like, the teacher, it's not about teaching to be the teacher to everyone and be put up on that pedestal. It's to teach people to fish so they can go forth and take care of themselves. It's not to create this dependency and this hierarchy.
Gorgeous. You know what? I think I can begin to hear. I'm going to choose this picture. I can do it. There's your other picture. Isn't that great? Oh, I love that picture. Yeah, that's just excellent. And for folks that are in the podcast, it's a beautiful, well, it's a Buddha, really, or is it a woman Buddha, really, with the such.
Well, what's really neat is I've been going to, I've got a good friend in Kansas City, and the Nelson Atkins Museum in Kansas City. There's the most exquisite wooden Kuan Yin from I think the 11th or 12th century Chinese, just beautiful, graceful. It's that wooden one where the hand kind of is out so gracefully off to the side, and she's sitting in this really beautiful situation. And I've been looking for her compliment all this time. And a friend of mine sent me photos in the Boston Museum of Art where there's this gentleman, actually it's male, but it's like, there's androgyny, of course, when you reach a certain level of,
that's right.
Not, it's about blending of the energies. It's not really, you're not really hanging on one extreme or the other anymore. The polarities don't matter as much when you reach a certain level of consciousness.
And that's what I appreciate here, because truly it's that individuality that shares peoplehood, right? It's peoplehood. Right. Yeah. Whether it's, it's just wonderful. Here is an interesting other picture that you did, which is, for those that aren't being able to see it, it's more of a design using the moon of its phases and the astrological signs, and in spheres intersecting each other, and yin and yang held together, and stars and beautiful things.
Yeah, this was fun to do. And then it was kind of like, I was thinking, it's almost like it's a little bit like the moment of a birth, because that's what's so neat when we think about the moment when we're born, the gears of each planet are, if the solar system was a big clock, like an old-fashioned grandfather clock, or tall case clock, we call them. The gears are all showing these different times. It's okay, from this angle it's Cancer, from this angle it's this planet's in Gemini, and from here we see this, and the moon and the sun are in this relationship to one another. And it's such a beautiful way to remember like what an expression each of us is in each moment. And that's hopefully something that we'll be able to learn with, Pluto is about empowerment right now. And I'm glad that you moved this over into the Pluto and Aquarius, because Pluto is about empowerment and about power. And so it's like power to the people. I think we're going to probably see more unions, getting really created. These ideas of these large corporations, that so many individuals are working at a low wage when there are so few people making these absurdly obscene amounts of money that are making everyone else work so that those people can have lives that they don't even, no human being needs to have billions and billions of dollars in the bank. I'm sorry. I think after $1 billion, it should be like, okay, you're taxed like at 50% or something, because, everything that you could possibly need as a human being, you're going to probably be able to mostly attain, except for maybe if you're wanting to build your own fleet of rockets to go to the moon.
I was just thinking about that. Elon Musk. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Going up
or the penile shaped one that that's.
What about the ocean? I would love folks to get serious about cleaning up the ocean. It's done on a very minor scale when you consider the world and the size of the ocean. That's 72% of our Earth. I mean, there's far more ocean than there is land, and we have plastic that's the size of Texas out there, and you have. Every little particle of food there's plastic in it. I mean, I could go on a rampage, which I am. Thank you.
I can actually join you 100% on that one. It's like, and then it's like anything organic now you get is completely wrapped in plastic. So I was like, what is the point?
yeah. Like, let's go back to paper. Let's do something that's just a little
glass.
more.
Let's do, yeah. No,
Like
I
here
agree.
we,
And Saturn's, I mean, that's what I mean, Saturn is where we need to take responsibility, right? Saturn is that area that requires us to say, hey, something needs to be done. Like, with Saturn and Aquarius, where it's been, it's we need to start taking care of other people. The homelessness situation is really getting out of hand. Housing is getting ridiculously expensive. We're going to have to find new ways of housing people. I think Saturn and Pisces is going to help us to realize, like, if we don't take care of the waterways and the universality of our planet, we're not going to survive as a species. Pluto and Aquarius is also, that is a death of humanity energy. I mean, there's the symbolism is also there. There could be nuclear threats that we're going to be witnessing, or I saw this with Pluto and Jupiter before with COVID. I saw that as being some sort of a pandemic, but Pluto and Aquarius can be like a type of a pandemic on a level that,
hard to know.
Yeah,
Yes.
like when we think about what the European settlers did with smallpox to the first world indigenous people of the Americas
Montezuma
alone.
going down there to Mexico or Cabo or all these people. Well, Saturn in Pisces will be on March 7th, 2023 until May 24th. Actually, it just at the very end, it retrogrades. To May 24th, 2025. And then for 3 months, it leaves. It goes. I'm not sure where it goes. Where does it go?
It goes direct to March 7th, and then I would imagine it goes retrograde from May 24th to September 1st, and then, or September, I'm sorry,
well, here on the
30th, 2025, and then we go direct September 1st, August 30th, and September 1st, 2025, direct through February 13th.
Wait a minute. Well, according to this, it's No, it's here. Sorry, folks. Here we are giving all these data to you. But March
one can look it up too.
Well, no, I have it here, and I got this from Café Astrology, which maybe they're wrong. But March 7th of this month, which is only in a few weeks, it enters Pisces, and it stays there all the way until May 24th, 2025. So we'll leave it at that. And at that point, it seems to, I know what happens. It goes into, then, of course, it goes into Aries, and then it goes back into Pisces. That's it, late 25. So that's a long ways away. We won't even worry about that. Right now it is. And it's time for a break. Thank you, everybody. We will be right back. This is with Michael Bartlett. Saturn and Pisces. These are very expansive ideas with bridging to Aquarius. We love you. We'll be right back. Thank you. While we take a break from this week's edition of Talk Cosmos, let's take a look at this cycle's archetype. We are currently in the Yang period of Aquarius, ruled modernly by Uranus, and Saturn in traditional astrology by the ancients. By leaving a cycle based on governing structures through both man-made and universal laws, Aquarius breaks established patterns, permitting the energy of freedom, just as its ruling planet Uranus spins on its side and orbits backwards. As a fixed air sign represented by the water bearer pouring the spirit of cosmic energy, Aquarius seeks to find like-minded, intuitively aligned souls to connect in social groups for the elevation and improvement of all.
This is Martha Norwalk. Every Sunday morning, beginning at 9 a.m., thanks in part to NewProSupplements.com, we cover the world of animals. This week, it's an encore presentation. Tune in.
Cosmos brings you leading-edge astrological conversations with hour-long programs each week on KKNW. The show goes live every Sunday from 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific. Talk Cosmos weekly programs are also available to watch live on Facebook and YouTube, along with daily chats throughout the week on the Talk Cosmos YouTube channel. While you're there, make sure you click like and subscribe buttons so you can get the full Talk Cosmos experience. Or, if you'd rather listen to the show archives with audio only, The entire podcast collection since 2018 is available on most podcast carriers. So, grab your coffee, tea, or kombucha and enjoy the show.
Get inspired every hour right here on Alternative Talk 1150.
Hello, and we are back. Michael, before we begin, do you have any particular event coming up that you would like to mention in 30 seconds or so? Quickly.
The only thing I can say coming up that I'm very excited about is I'm going to be speaking at the International Astrology Days in Istanbul between the 24th and 27th of March. So I'm very excited to be out there. Istanbul and Turkey, Istanbul in particular, and Turkey in general are really high number of astrologers and people who are interested in astrology in the country, and both in the country and in the city. So I'm very excited to go out there and speak and meet some of our fellow astrologers out there.
Well, that is, I'm speechless because of the earthquakes there. Mm-hmm. It will still be working because of the earthquakes. And I keep thinking of Owner Doser, who I know is a great astrologer, and I've been meaning to ask if he's okay. Yeah. So I'm glad.
So I checked in with him. Well, Istanbul, the earthquake happened over on the eastern side of the country next to Syria. And so Istanbul is northwestern. And so I checked in with Owner, and he's well, and he sends his best, and is thankful for anyone who wants to send blessings as well as contributions to help, of course, anything to help.
Yes.
So many individuals displaced and so many people lost, and so many amazing tales of survival over a long period
Yes.
of time.
Oh, incredible. It does. Again, it expands consciousness in the sense that their dedication to look for people found people after a week through these tremendous ordeals. I love the story of the father and the little child that were exchanging, I forget what, tales of something, some kind of dream or something very innocent and beautiful just between them to keep the moment alive. And maybe that's part of it, is staying with the moment, trusting the moment. Yeah.
And what an interesting, I mean, and how many people were doing that and sitting there and hoping to be heard and hoping to be saved and didn't have that chance. I mean, I don't know. I have a 12th house moon. And so I have to say that, like, there's this, it's one of, like, probably the scariest thoughts, this idea of being trapped, under.
Oh, I know.
I mean, I can't
My
even
Saturn's
imagine.
there.
Well, my Saturn's in the 4th in Pisces, so it's kind of the same thing. So it's kind of like, no. The idea of living on the bottom floor of an apartment complex or staying on the bottom floor of a hotel or something like that just doesn't seem safe to me.
And it is amazing as one learns through archaeology, perhaps, or I'm thinking of the television that has all these wonderful programs, that there were cities where thousands of people lived under the ground for extended periods of time in huge networks, like a bee colony. It just pretty incredible as far as this goes. Well, thank you. Definitely. We are talking about two huge subjects between Saturn entering Pisces, the all-inclusive last mutable sign of water, and the Pluto and Aquarius, that's flash, bam, alakazam, that I've been saying, that you've talked about the dynamics of the immediate sudden change that has a lot to do both on planetary bases, because, of course, on so many elements, they cross-pollinate each other. They're both social, they're both collective. One's conscious, maybe one's unconscious, but yet they synergetically move esoterically with their rulerships in various ways. And also, when you think of air and water, they're companions. I mean, in the water is H2O, and because of the cycle of water coming from the ocean into the sky and coming down as fresh water, it feeds everybody. I mean, they're buddies, and they do flock together. Birds of a feather flock together. So here we have, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and Saturn kind of gives us a way to have a relationship here. Pluto, Saturn is the last physical planet you can see with the naked eye at night. And so that is why our ancestors only really ever went, traditional astrology only really goes up to Saturn, because there wasn't an idea of anything beyond that. And so each time that a new planet, when Uranus was found, and then we had the Industrial Revolution, and then we had the spiritual movement happen in the late 1800s, and then that was the spiritual movement that happened when Neptune was discovered. And then we had nuclear war happen in the 1930s when Pluto was discovered. Then that creating nuclear. So it's this understanding, and I believe it has to do with levels of consciousness. In esoteric world, we look at Pluto, Uranus, and Neptune. I mean, Pluto's radioactive. So if we think of physical matter as being consciousness or spirit at its most dense, and if we think of spirit as matter at its least dense, we kind of get an understanding of how this is. If we look at the Star of David, two triangles coming together, a triangle descending from above down towards earth, is spirit embodying, incarnating, basically becoming meat, right? Incarnate. And then the triangle coming up from the earth, which is the earth being coming into spirit, and it meets in our heart. And that's why that's what's so important about our heart. And again, the second ray about love and wisdom, it's this idea of where we have love and compassion. And that's what these outer planets and later signs are. It's that thing that says, hey, it's not just about you.
No, it's dissolving to merge, because that's very alienating. That self that's not attached, and whether it's abandonment or whether it's alienation, this Piscean energy is going to dissolve those separations and allow us to feel unified with the humanity that we're wanting to serve. Shall we look at that? So I really appreciate everything you're saying. It's very true. Because we want that inner strength that this Piscean energy is going to bring us by connecting to source. Here is the chart. I don't know if we want to look at a few of the charts for the two, because they're both happening within 2 weeks of each other in March. Only less than a few weeks away.
Yeah, the sun's already in there. Mercury. I love Mercury because Mercury is almost always kind of, quote, paving the way is what I like to say, paving the way and preparing us for it, as the psychopomp coming in and saying, doo, 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 doo. Here comes Kronos into the last sign, into the sign that is timelessness. I mean, how does one reconcile the land of Neptune with Saturn? But the truth is, water needs a container. Water needs something to give it structure. The thing that comes to mind for me is the wonderful saying from the Course in Miracles, is the idea that the ego is this drop of water that remains individualized within the ocean. But when you're in Pisces, when Saturn's in Pisces, when the sun's in Pisces, when any planet's in Pisces, it's like, oh, it's me and I'm one of,
Yes.
It gets into, I mean, with Aquarius, of course, that's the Borg,
Well, but inclusivity to me is what I love about the recent definition is and both. I can have joy and I can have sorrow. I can be alone, yet I can be part. I can be all these disparate things, because what seems disparate or separated, because they're in an axis. It's like astrology. It's not just one house versus the other. There are two spectrums of a wheel, a wheel that turns.
And both of these are dual. Both of these signs are considered dual signs. Both Aquarius and Pisces are considered dual signs. Aquarius, 2 wavelengths, of course. And Pisces, while you have those 2 lines, what they symbolize is one fish that's moving actively forward, and the other fish that is basically kind of like relaxing and enjoying the flow of the water. A lot of people make jokes about one being good and one being bad, but I mean, these are the eternal, this is the eternal balance. And it's about it's finding that way of like, what is the right amount of activity? Because right across from Pisces is Virgo, the busybody of the zodiac.
The fixer.
The fixer, right? Capable. Right. And Pisces on the other side says, everything's fine just the way it is.
Well, what I'm fascinated with, the Piscean glyph that you're mentioning, or not glyph, but the symbology of this string, or this that attaches them, such as the mythology, as we know of
Right.
Venus and her son Eris, or Cupid, fleeing from the Tartans, or the terrible
Someone was after them. Yeah.
demons. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they flee back to the water, which is the emotional fluidity of nurturing love. And Venus came out of the water. But what I'm thinking of is, what was I thinking here? So you can do it. It was the let's see, what was it? You were talking about the two sides.
Symbology of the symbology of the active and the passive, and Venus.
Oh yeah, right. The two of them it's like light. If we think of Pisces, love, light, being synonymous, as far as many times in metaphysical talks, one begins to realize this connection. But light is both a wave and a particle. And so a wave works as a movement of a force. And then when you stop, the paradox is when it stops and you look at it and focus, it becomes just these individual particles. Yet to me, that it rings beautifully. And it also says about these two fish. One is in motion going through the water, and the other one is working. It's moving. So one is there and the other is in motion. So it's all.
And teaching us to be. I mean, I think one of the most important, I think in esoteric astrology, Libra is as we all know, Libra is the only inorganic sign. It's not an animal, a creature, or a human. It is an inanimate object that is about balance. And in esoteric astrology, we call it the pause. So it's like the taking of the breath. It's like stepping back a second. And Aquarius has a little bit of that, but it's Aquarius has an idea what needs to be done. Aquarius isn't going to Aquarius is going to fixate on whatever that kind of issue is that needs to be resolved, and finding things. So it's going to be interesting to see, how we move into this. I think it's also the issues of automation. We have Uranus in Taurus squaring by sign where Pluto is. So, that agitation, how do we relate to this new age of electronic experiences?
Yes, in March 23rd, and this is Greenwich time at 4:44 p.m., Pluto will enter Aquarius. And we must be feeling the vibrations a lot. Of course we do. It's like nothing is instant. It's not like the TV dial that gets clicked. It's a process of sensation and energetic motion, just like waves coming in on the sea.
And I don't know about you, but for some reason, and when I look at this chart, I can see where there are some issues with it that can create it. That in conjunct with Pluto to Mars, it's an out of sign in conjunct. The nice thing is they're by air, but interruptions that we might end up having by to our computers and to our cloud-based things. I really want to welcome
My
people
dead
to
mouse.
find ways of. Yeah, your dead mouse. But I mean, in those things of where we rely on, all of our bank account information is online. I think it's really good to, like, every once in a while print out a copy of your bank account. It's really important every once in a while, because with solar flares, with other things going on, with the shifting of the poles that we're getting ready to do, one of the things that happens is the electromagnetic field pulls itself in. When it does, that allows for a lot of more solar activity, and a lot of the other rays that normally don't make it through into our atmosphere, their atmosphere kind of bounces out, is going to be coming in. So I think we're going to be experience a lot of things that, as they say, may you live in interesting times. We're in Kali Yuga times. It's not the normal regular way of doing things. So I think that Pluto, Mars. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, we're all being transported. We're all being transported. And it began, as we all recognize, I feel, back at 2020, right there. I mean, it could have been happening, but we were conscious of it I was in Seattle, as a matter of fact, when the first official COVID came out in Issaquah at an elderly home there. and wherever it could have been, but that's what's acknowledged. But the point being that unanimously our operation became altered and stopped, literally stopped, like and you could say an escape, an escape from what had been into new territory. And it's like we're vacationing, but yet the vacation becomes your home after a while. It's not really a vacation. It's like new terms of conduct and new terms of behavior and culture itself changing.
That Pluto and Sun sextile. That's interesting. That I think we're going to get a flash surprise sort of an experience or some sort of a thing that's going to give us a little bit of a hint of what this Pluto and Aquarius is going to get. I think this time between March and is it August or September, I think, is when it switches back into Capricorn until
Well,
April
let's see. I've got a chart here somehow of my timing, if that's what you want to see exactly. Timing. We'll go right back here. Come on, perfect. Sue, we can do this. Wait a minute. Now, where is it? Is it here? Nope. Darn. I don't have my mouse, folks, so I'm going old-fashioned with the finger, right? Oh, my goodness.
That's Pluto and Aquarius giving your computer the finger.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, my gosh. Is it here? No, it's not. Where did I put this? Nathan, do you see where there's a chart that says the dates for Pluto? Now that's a chart for Pluto, but is there one where I put the dates for the ingress, like when it was going to be and what sign? Well, at any rate, I do believe my memory here of all these different.
It's one of those.
things.
Yeah, they're in there. I think it might. Is it after this one? Maybe.
No, this is the very last one.
Okay, then go backwards.
Because this is Saturn.
You just go back and then go backwards. Backwards.
It's not letting me. Sometimes.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a little limited here in the. Okay, no let's problem. Try this. Okay, let's try going this way.
Yep.
Pluto and Aquarius. Thanks for your patience. Yeah, March 23rd, it enters only in the 0 degree of Aquarius with minutes, but until June 11th, which is interesting because Sedna, the outer planet, the furthest dwarf planet, on the 15th enters Gemini, but they don't make a connection. I mean, an exact connection. I mean, trine or anything. Then it stays in Capricorn. It goes back to 27 degrees Capricorn, which is right about what we're experiencing now, until January of next year. So from June to January, which is 6-7 months. And then it will go into Aquarius again, just for 2 degrees for most of the year, 9 months until September when school starts, 2024. And then it retrogrades again, and it actually tiptoes into the very last degree of Capricorn for only a couple of months, because a degree only takes a couple of months. And then November 19th, 2024, which is a ways away, that's a year and a half, it will finally enter its entire Aquarius cycle until 43.
I see these kind of periods as being stitching periods. You know, Pluto's kind of bringing this in there. And the other thing to remember with Pluto, I mean, with Aquarius and Capricorn, is they're both Saturn ruled. In esoteric astrology, Saturn rules Capricorn on both the traditional level as well as the esoteric level, meaning that there's an understanding. There's this idea that one cannot get. Well, first of all, it's not about the ego. It's this idea of becoming personal to the impersonal and impersonal to the personal. So it's this understanding that one needs to not be taking everything as that it has to do with oneself. It's about sacrificing and letting things go and releasing and understanding that you can't really step into the next level of your consciousness, the next level of your understanding, if you haven't done your proper work.
Do you know what's interesting about that? It makes me feel a responsibility. If you feel like one is responsible for everything that happens, that's very egocentric, actually. Whereas instead, if one realizes that one is in partnership with the whole of the universe, of this spiritual greater energy that manifests through our attraction of what we feel and how we are oriented, then we have responsibility for ourselves in that regard, and therefore we can accommodate. We don't feel responsible directly for, like you were indicating, with that. So is that perhaps the impersonal that?
And one of my favorite sayings is, trust in Allah or God or all that is, and tie your camel to the tree. And that's what you're speaking to here, right? It's this idea. I mean, and these things, like the story that came forward a few years ago with that thing, The Secret, like all you have to do is affirm. And if you affirm, you're magically going to make things occur. Yeah. No, it's such horrible kind of schlock to sell to people, because it makes them think that, I can just get things, and because it's not, that's really,
and they can be guilty because they can't do it, and what's wrong with them.
Exactly.
And all that
exactly.
stuff.
Well, it's like, it isn't your time, but the thing is if you learn how to radiate and be your authentic self, that which Saturn teaches us, that which Pluto gives us, and you start radiating that, and you start being your true self, chances are you're going to start making money and having the connections that are going to start giving you the life that you're really wanting to live.
It is. It absolutely. Attraction is truly that sense of what is beautiful, and what can be beautiful is not just in forms of perceived form, but yet in all form. I'm thinking vibrationally speaking, the very core part of it. So, and it's beautiful to think that, as little as I know about esoteric, and I'm learning also a little bit, is it's a second ray. What is the first ray? Is the first ray?
The first ray is will.
Okay.
The will. So, this idea of in the Bible, when it's this idea of let there be light, before that is spoken, before the word, the logo is spoken, there's the thought of it.
Yes.
So
that has a lot to do about attraction. It's what you're feeling. It's not just a mental, but it's that organic connection between thought, emotion, awareness,
intention.
Intention. Yes. And so therefore the fact that love is base really gives glory to the full spectrum. I think Aquarius will offer that embracing envelope of love that can incorporate, because without love requires us to be forgiving, to be of all those things of the Piscean teaches, of compassion, to get over oneself, I was hurt, no, this was done, and the injustices and blah, 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 which could be in one framework. Nothing's not true, but yet is that the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Possibly not.
And that's I think that can be another shadow part of Pluto and Aquarius, right? Because it is a fixed sign. And if it gets stuck in that, I like my friend Aaron Sullivan has a great saying too. She says, the smaller the idea, the more petty the Aquarian, the more grand the idea, the more grand the idea, the more grand the Aquarian, because it's like, if they get caught up in the minutia, that's where the problem is. And so Pluto's coming in and saying, hey, it's not necessarily so.
That reminds me of that song, not necessarily. So forget how that goes. I think it's a great song. Boy, oh boy. Well, we're in for a lot of flash, bam, alakazam, I suppose, and the fish and water. And it's very exciting though, because it has to do about nature. I love nature. I love the city too, of course, but how could we live without the trees and the birds and the bees and the water and the trees and all of that? Yeah.
I live out in the country, and I think that, to be honest, that's an aspect that Aquarius, I believe, and Pisces both share, is need for space, need for time. I know for myself, I live on the top of a hill. I have great views in all directions. When I come home, this part of me, I just like literally exhale. There's just a peace, there's a sense. And so, getting out in nature is going to be really important to people. Getting out in things where you have a larger perspective. One of the things I think is so powerful about Aquarius too is the periscopic ability. This ability, when you think about submarines, going down and they have this thing that shoots up so they can see things a little bit higher above them. Aquarius has that ability inherently, and it was like, it's got the Saturn body, and then it can shoot up consciousness that is like the Uranus energy coming in that gives flashes of insights, and that Saturn gives it somewhere to land. That's what I think is really so beautiful about it. And then when we think about with Jupiter being love, and Aquarius is like unrelenting pursuit for knowledge, I think knowledge and love combined is what creates wisdom. It's this thing that we devote ourselves to, this thing that we give ourselves to over time.
Oh, Michael, that's beautiful. I am really a great umbrella, a relationship. I mean, why do we need the umbrella? Because the rain's coming down and we blah, blah, blah. But still, I like all this. It's been wonderful. Thank you. And
always a treat.
We are about to enter new voyages. We'll get our weather vane up and our sails rigged, and sounds good. Well, thank you to everybody. Do subscribe and keep in touch with us. We love your feedback, and we wish you happy voyages, or sound, smooth, integral being. Yes, on a holistic self. Okay, till again.
Thank you for joining us on Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Rose Minahan and her panel of guests connect soul growth patterns with the energetic